This is Chad Miles. I am co-host of The Bruce Collins Show, and something has caught my attention recently on the internet, and it's something that's been going around for quite a while, I think since about 2005. And this is an urban legend commonly referred to as the Giant of Kandahar. Now, if you're not familiar with this, back in 2005, researcher Steve Quayle was on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie promoting a story that supposedly was coming out of the war zone in Afghanistan. And how the story goes is a pilot, a cargo pilot, contacted Steve Quayle and said that he had flown the corpse of a giant out of Afghanistan, and this giant was allegedly killed by Special Forces troops. And he went on and described in detail what he had seen, and this was in a book that Steve Quayle had written called The Long Walkers. And I had heard about this back then and didn't pay too much attention to it. Now, fast forward to recently, and L.A. Marzulli picked up the story, and he put a couple of interviews in his new DVD series, The Watchers, and The Watchers 10, and he interviewed two alleged soldiers. Now, one soldier was allegedly just a line infantry soldier, but the other one was supposedly an operator who had personally participated in the operation that killed this giant. And this is what caught my attention, because something didn't sit right with me when I heard the stories from these two alleged soldiers. But how the story goes, and they elaborated further from the pilot story, allegedly a Special Forces team had been missing in the mountains of Afghanistan. And so a subsequent team was sent to find them. Now, in the interview that L.A. Marzulli does with this supposed operator, and his face is pixelated and his voice is modulated, or it's changed so you can't tell how his voice sounds, but I believe in the interview he claims to be a contractor. So if that's the case, he was supposedly a former Special Operations soldier, a SEAL, Delta Force, whatever, who had left the military and then gone to work as a civilian contractor in a similar capacity as to what he did when he was in Special Forces. But at any rate, he claims to be part of this team. They went to look for the first Special Forces team, and they approached a cave in Afghanistan, and they saw bones, half-eaten flesh, and then they noticed some communications equipment that was from U.S. military. So by the time they had seen the communications equipment, they were supposedly ambushed by a 15-foot red-haired giant. And this giant was wielding a pike. So basically, this is a weapon that would be a 9 or 10-foot wooden pole with a blade on the end. So the giant proceeds to take his pike and skewers one of the members of the team. So after this happens, the Special Forces team, or the civilian contractors, allegedly open fire on this giant. They take him down after a sustained rate of gunfire for about, I think the guy said 30 seconds. They kill this giant. They call in to the fire base. They sling load this thing out of the mountains on a Chinook. Although I think the guy in the interview said it was not a Chinook, it was some other aircraft, which didn't make a lot of sense to me. And it was little things like that were kind of catching my attention when he was talking that didn't seem right to me. They sling load this thing out, take it to Kandahar, and then that's where the pilot comes in and supposedly picks this thing up. The second guy that LA interviewed claimed to be just a line infantry guy, and he says that when he was there, number one, this story about the giant in that operation was common knowledge. It was like an open secret. You could ask anybody who was in Afghanistan, and they would know what you were talking about this giant that was killed. And number two, he claimed that they had a strange portion of their rules of engagement over there. And basically, what he says is, when they were aiming for someone in a firefight, you would aim for the head and chest area and then higher, which he didn't understand. And which I didn't understand either when I was hearing this. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. So, none of this seemed right to me. I spent 7 years on active duty in the Army. I was in the 82nd Airborne Division. I was in the 5th Special Forces Group in a military intelligence capacity. And I did a year tour of duty in Korea with the 2nd Infantry Division. So I have a lot of friends who used to be in the military. I have friends who are retired from the military, and I have friends who remain on active duty in the military. So I proceed to contact the people whom I know personally, who were not only in the military, but who served in Afghanistan. And I contacted several people I know who were literally boots on the ground. One of these guys was working military intelligence with special forces in Afghanistan. And I asked them, since this supposedly is common knowledge, they should know about it. So I asked them, did you hear about this? Neither one of them, or none of them, I should say, had ever heard of this. They had no idea what I was talking about. They kind of thought it was funny, to be honest with you. So this apparently was not common knowledge. And I doubt that it really happened. And I hate to burst people's bubbles, and I know people are going to get upset with me, but I'm hearing that this never happened. Now, does that mean it definitively did not happen? I don't know, but I don't think it did. So I don't know. Now, here's the reason that the interviews didn't sit right with me when I was listening to this. Number one, the rules of engagement seemed kind of strange when he was talking about it. It just seemed kind of strange, and you would think that it would seem normal to be told, well, to shoot somebody in the chest. He says specifically shoot in the chest and then shoot somebody in the head. Typically, you're not that close of a proximity to the enemy, and I'll be honest with you, and a lot of people watch movies and think it's the opposite, but you're usually not in that close proximity. So that kind of seems strange to me. But when I was listening to the other guy who claimed to be an operator, and something just didn't sit right with me, and he was saying things, and he had some of the lingo down and some of the terminology, and it kind of threw me off at first, but then I listened and I thought, wait a minute, something's not right here. And then I realized, I think this guy has played video games, military-based video games, because the way he talks, it just sounds like he knows some things about the military, but he's never actually been in the military, at least in the capacity that he's claiming, in the capacity of a special forces operator or somebody who has served in an infantry squad or a platoon. So that's the conclusion that I came up with. So I don't even know if the guy who claims he's an operator, I don't even know if he's ever really served in the military, to be honest with you. He just didn't seem like he had done so. And that's according just from hearing him, and it's hard to tell. You can't really read body language or anything because these guys, their voices are disguised and their faces are pixelated, so you can't really get a bead on where they're coming from in that sense. But it just didn't sit right with me, and I think that's why. So I'm going to leave links below to the interview that L.A. Marzulli did. I'm going to leave a link to the follow-up interview that Steve Quayle did with the actual alleged C-130 pilot, so you can listen for yourselves and you can draw your own conclusions. But from what I'm hearing, guys, this never happened. Sorry. That's where I'm coming from. You may disagree. That's fine. Leave a comment below. If you were if you're supposedly involved in the operation, contact me and let me know. But from the people that I'm talking to, it never happened. So I don't think it happened, to be honest. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you want to see more videos like this, let me know. Subscribe, share with your friends, and thank you for watching.